Principle of equivalence and structural equality between cosmic levels. If the same forces and sets of elements exist at the different cosmic levels, micro and macrocosm, atoms and stars, as well as the same dimensions and interrelationships between all them, then the cosmic structuring of these levels must also be similar and equivalent. Authors challenge any evidence and observation that is clear and conclusive that there is some uncommon force or element between both levels, atomic and stellar, will be proof of failure and devaluation of my cosmic and atomic model, but any evidence and observation of new coincidences in these elements at both levels will be proof and validity of my model. And this seems to be supported by the observations and measurements made to date, although occasionally the same element of the microcosm and the macrocosm have been named differently, such as, for example, the strong force in atoms and gravity in stars, due to inappropriate measurements, as noted below. These data and observations are presented in the drawings and tables, in which we first see how the known basic cosmic forces, such as gravity and magnetic forces, exist at both the atomic and stellar levels. Gravity, for example, is easily denoted and measured at our level by the attraction that stars exert on the surrounding matter and which is enormous in stellar nuclei or suns like ours. However, at the level of atomic nuclei, it is said to be very weak, not because it has been measured there, but because it has been adjusted to our level parameters. This does not seem acceptable since more than 90% of matter, and therefore the gravity of the cosmos must be in atomic nuclei, and therefore it must be extremely strong there, as its name, the strong force, suggests. But as I believe, the adjustments were made with measurements and metric units specific to our level, but without taking into account that atomic metric units are 6.28 times 10 to the power of 22 times smaller, and that the square of the gravitational distances with these coefficients would be 4 times 10 to the power of 45 on the outer periphery of atoms. Another aberration in my opinion, is the one referring to the Higgs fields and bosons, so far from observation and practical application, and so difficult to digest for a critical physicist, since both concepts already exist in classical physics and that they are the force of gravity that permeates the entire universe, and all the material particles condensed by these gravitational fields, which are those that measure their masses between them. Regarding magnetic fields, we already see from magnets, polarly arranged atoms, that they have the same form of attraction, distribution, in ion filings, and high potential as the magnetic fields exerted by celestial bodies. And looking for the magnetic fields of magnets and celestial bodies in internal electric currents doesn't seem very correct since magnets are crystalline in nature and do not move charges, and celestial bodies, for the most part, do not necessarily have any type of internal electric current, which would otherwise be gigantic. No, as explained in my model, magnetic fields predate electricity, which is itself an electromagnetic charge. What happens is that a current of electrons can unbalance and excite the magnetic fields of the atoms through which it circulates. In any case, and as shown in the drawings, both the forces and fields, gravitational and magnetic, as well as the elements and compositions of elements, are equal and equivalent at all levels, whether atoms or stars. Common structural elements such as atomic nuclei with electrons, stars with planets, electrons and leptons with neutrinos, minor and major planets with their moons, etc., are equal or equivalent. In addition, there is their behavior, forming orbital systems with larger nuclei and satellites around them. But the relative dimensions between levels are also equivalent, as are the relative dimensions of nuclear matter with its satellites, the relative dimensions of their nuclear radii and system radii, etc. And if the same force fields and the same elements exist, then their structure and behavior must be similar and equivalent from one level to another, between microcosm and macrocosm. And above all, nothing probabilistic, but rather a strict behavior of forces and elements, as we see occurs at our level. But let's review some of the equivalences between levels. In the equivalences of atomic and stellar measurements, we have kept things as simple as possible by referring, for example, to the relative masses between nuclei and their orbitals or satellites, using our Sun as an example, and to the sum of the masses orbiting it, such as planets, moons, etc. In it, we see that the Sun can have approximately 2 times 10 to the power of 30 kilograms, while its orbitals can have a mass of 2 times 10 to the power of 27 kilograms, the ratio between them being approximately 10 to the power of 3. And in atomic mass measurements, we would have that the nucleus of an atom equivalent to the Sun, which could be neon, would be 20 times 10 to the power of minus 27 kilograms, and the sum of the masses of its orbitals could be approximately 20 times 10 to the power of minus 30 kilograms, the ratio between them also being approximately 10 to the power of 3. Regarding the relative measurements of the radii of the nucleus in relation to the radii of the orbital systems, atomic radii, and radii of the solar system, we would have that the radius of the solar system would be 6 times 10 to the power of 12 m. And the radius of the Sun would be approximately 7 times 10 to the power of 8 m, with the ratio between them being approximately 10 to the power of 4. This way, the radius of a neon atom being approximately 8 times 10 to the power of minus 10 m. And so this way the radius of the neon nucleus being approximately of 10 to the power of minus 4. And so, the ratio between them would also be approximately 10 to the power of 4. Asterisk the QM, a pseudoscience for believers, but not for critical physicists. The postulates of quantum mechanics can only be sustained by a narrow-minded human imagination devoid of even a modicum of scientific criticism, which they call inappropriate everyday logic. And yes, I understand that QM is wrong from the start, for example, that particles are waves and that these, according to their double-slit experiments, for example, can occupy more than 1 cubic meter of volume. And as 2 simple examples, drawings, show. If, within the scope of the double-slit experiment, minimum 1 cubic meter of volume, photon or electron particles were waves of that size, then in that scope there would be trillions of electromagnetic waves coexisting, interfering, and reflecting off each other, without being able to manifest or measure each other separately, as the ripples of a heavy rain on the surface of a pond would. Nor would it be possible for different states of a particle to be superimposed continuously and simultaneously, since this is contrary to the evolution that we know occurs continuously in cosmic physics, that is, at every moment in time, every element or particle must have different states, movements and positions in order to recombine with other elements and constantly transform and evolve. The multiplicity of superimposed and latent states is contrary to any capacity for evolution and recombination of cosmic elements of any kind. For now, that's all there is to this summary of the equivalence between cosmic levels. Thank you very much for your interest and kindness.